For 8 years, we have been waiting for our ticket to Night City. As early as 2012, CD Projekt announced their game adaptation of the pen and paper RPG, Cyberpunk. The long development of this first-person action RPG was not without a struggle, however. The tough marketing sometimes seemed to deliberately seek the controversy, and the game had both fans and critics long before it was released. In the meantime, the release date moved up regularly even after the game had officially gone gold and should therefore be ready for distribution. After CD Projekt Red has previously promised not to subject their employees to crunch time, the crunch was eventually mandated to ensure Cyberpunk 2077 did not slip to 2021. As always, this involves dangers. Great expectations are simply difficult to fulfill. Cyberpunk 2077 does not escape that. In a sense, a direct parallel can be drawn between the game and the city that actually plays the leading role. Likewise, Cyberpunk 2077 offers its promised experience especially to those fortunate enough to own a good PC or next-gen console. And while Cyberpunk 2077 also makes a lot of dreams come true, not everything is fun and games. How you get to know Night City for the first time depends on the choice you make before you even start your adventure. While you create your main character V, you can also choose a life path. You can start as a street kid who tries to work his way up from the underbelly of Night City to a rich man in the service of the almighty corporations that, in practice, rule the city. Or you choose the opposite route and start as a corporal rat and immediately fall off your pedestal afterwards. And then there is also the nomad experience, which is the only life path that does not start in the city itself. As someone from outside Night City, you might think that making your first steps into the city would be a tremendous occasion. Although the first moments you will indeed see the city shining far into the horizon of the desert, the way you enter is a bit more disappointing. After only half an hour and an in-game time-lapse of 6 months, you're just dropped into the middle of the city. It is an example of how the choices in your life path are actually less drastic than it seems. Because apart from a different prologue and different dialogue options, the 3 life paths quickly converge. In each version, V soon comes into contact with ex-gang member Jackie Wells, and with his help starts a life as a mercenary. Together with Jackie, V does dirty jobs around town for the fixers who rule the city's illegal underbelly. Contract murders, robberies, or kidnappings, V doesn't bat an eye to these kinds of things, as long as it brings in the money and makes life in Night City more bearable. However, things quickly turn to the worst. During one of their more daring missions, things go terribly awry. The plan to steal a prototype chip in a glitzy hotel that was prepared to perfection falls into chaos due to unforeseen circumstances. In the chaos that ensues during the escape, V then makes a capital mistake. In order to not lose the chip, he installs it in his own body. When the dust has settled, V is left with a very expensive experimental chip in his body that he can no longer remove and is slowly but surely eating up his mind and body. The experimental piece of technology contains the memories and personality of Johnny Silverhand, a rock star who slipped into terrorism and died in an attack on Arasaka Tower in 2020. Slowly, Johnny threatens to hijack V's personality, so V must race against time to find a way to safely remove the chip. And this is the first problem the game has. For a bulky RPG that rivals games like Skyrim and Fallout, the story here is remarkably linear and focused. V has a clear objective, and with every main quest, he takes leaps forward. It kind of feels like you're being rushed. However, behind the all-in-all simple plot, which you can complete in less than 20 hours, hides a lot of narrative richness. CD Projekt has already proved with The Witcher how good they are at weaving deep storylines full of interesting characters and moral grayscales. And this talent rhymes perfectly with a thematically rich universe like Cyberpunk 2077, where nothing is as black and white as it first seems to be. V meets a whole series of fascinating, mysterious, dangerous, and often tragic characters who, under their extremely tough appearance, are also human and fragile. This is also the case for Johnny Silverhand, who you initially get to know as a next-level cunt, but whose motivations you gradually come to understand. Although the choice remains yours whether you agree with him or not, because just like in The Witcher 3, Cyberpunk 2077's story is based on choices with often unexpected consequences. Nowhere is this more the case than in the seemingly endless series of side quests and jobs that V can take. Just about every major character has their own side story that is worked out in a variety of optional missions.
Kiss my dead spunk!
Joke's on you, I'm into that shiz.
It is often here that Cyberpunk 2077 takes off its tough mask to show a more human side. Some of the side stories even regularly shun the violence that lurks around the corners of the main story. It is therefore not inconceivable that in a mission you simply need to partake in an ofrenda for a deceased friend, and thus learn more about what he meant to his loved ones. Characters that, in other games, would mainly serve to put you on the road to your next quest, get a depth that few RPGs can achieve. Even side missions, separate from the main characters, cut deeper than you might expect. What may initially seem like a simple assignment can quickly lead to a questline of several missions with a story that takes unexpected directions. You often have a hand in the direction such a story takes, through moral choices that do not always have the consequences you expect. In short, Cyberpunk 2077 presents you to a perverse world in which you need to decide in which direction your moral compass points. That freedom is also woven into the core gameplay. Via very extensive RPG systems, you can expand V to the character you want him or her to be. Even a virtually non-violent approach is possible. And in between the extremes, there are dozens of degrees. There is no pure system of classes that pushes you into a specific role at the start, but you gradually mold your own unique V. It starts with the 5 core abilities: reflexes, cool, body intelligence, and technical proficiency. Every time V levels up, you can invest more and more points into one of these features. Those who prefer to throw themselves carefree into the line of fire will better invest in some reflexes and body, which respectively makes V handle guns better and makes him more resilient. If stealth is more your cup of tea, then focus on cool. This characteristic ensures, among other things, that V is less likely to be noticed. An emphasis on intelligence and technical proficiency improves V's hacking skills, so that he can disrupt the cybernetic implants of his opponents and open closed doors through quick hacks. Under each of the 5 characteristics, there are up to 3 different skill trees in which you can unlock various perks. The perks available depend on the level of the respective core ability, with the best perks, of course, being reserved for the higher levels. Under reflexes, for example, there are skill trees for machine guns, pistols, and melee weapons, including perks that let you reload faster after a kill, or allow you to do more damage to enemies whose health is above a certain threshold. Under cool, you will find perks like Dagger Dealer, which allows you to throw knives. In addition, you also have to take skills into account. Skills include specific actions, which is using a firearm or hacking, and can be strengthened by performing those actions. For example, the more you use a pistol, the higher the level your handgun skill becomes, and the better V can handle small firearms. And we haven't even talked about body modifications yet. Like everyone else in Night City, V's body is full of cybernetic implants that artificially strengthen his body. In the bleak cabinets of a Ripperdoc, you can trade in hard cash for new upgrades. A strong skeleton lets you carry more loot. Mantis blades in your forearms give you a deadly melee option, and stronger tendons give you access to higher jumps. Add to that a wealth of weapons and equipment, the use of which is determined by your street cred, a level that indicates how infamous you are. You have plenty of options to create your own unique V. Lovers of in-depth character building will get more than their heart desires. However, in all fairness, for some people, thinking about you Call of Duty players out there, it might be a bit too much of a good thing. These people would rather play Cyberpunk 2077 as a straightforward shooter, and to those people, I simply have to say, dump all of your points into body and reflexes. You'll soon end up with a V that's giving away bullets like Oprah's giving away books, and easily shake off the lead as well. On one hand, this is indicative of the freedom Cyberpunk 2077 offers. The adventure does not have to be played as a deep RPG. You can choose how much time you want to invest in the deeper layers. But on the other hand, it also indicates that the multitude of RPG layers is actually not well balanced in the game. When something so fundamental to the genre can so easily be forgotten or ignored, where's the value? The problem is that CD Projekt Red seems to confuse quantity with depth. By choosing excess, one ends up with something that collapses under its own weight. Once you push V in a certain direction, most of the further upgrades feel redundant and futile. The same feeling applies to Night City, both in concept and in execution. It is a city of excesses, and the enormous game world feels overcrowded but empty at the same time. This contradiction lies in the difference between presentation and content. I mean, audiovisually, Night City is an attack on the senses. The huge metropolis is a maze of narrow alleys, wide streets, and curling highways. It is impossible not to be impressed by the complexity and sheer size of everything. Never before have we roamed through an urban game world that was so vertical, with skyscrapers that overshadow everything and viaducts that cut through neighborhoods. Night City seems to have a history with it, and gives the impression that it is lived in. But that is all an illusion. For example, many NPCs do not deviate from their fixed position, not even an inch. Most assignments you come across are given to you from your fixers or side characters by phone, creating a huge discrepancy between game world and missions. Unlike many other open-world RPGs, you don't tumble from one adventure to the next. And because of this, the city quickly becomes nothing more than a simple backdrop. However, I want to detract from the technical feat that CD Projekt delivers here. Those fortunate enough to own a decent system will marvel at breathtaking graphics and lighting that bring the phenomenal art design to life. Here and there, an interior seems like bare and flat, but in general, Night City is brimming with almost tangible details. However, all of this is connected with some gum and packing rope. I mean, every open-world game of this size will have to contend with bugs and glitches that have slipped through the QA team. But Cyberpunk 2077 is making things very colorful in that regard. Sometimes the streets are just littered with people in T-poses. Some HUD elements that should have disappeared a long time ago just remain stuck in the picture. All of this just makes the brutal crunch to which CD Projekt personnel was subjected to even more painful. Because in the end, it only proves that overworked employees let things fall through the cracks. The game is even worse on console. It takes up to half a minute to load textures, making everything look like a blurry mess. Moreover, the resolution doesn't even reach the HD standard, which gives everything a blurry look. Blurry mess on top of blurry look.
Nice.
We can only advise against Cyberpunk 2077 for anyone who does not have a decent PC or next-gen console at home. Those fortunate enough, however, will discover an excellent RPG that may not deliver on all of its promises, but ultimately has hours of immersive fun to offer. And for that, this game gets a 9 out of 10 from me. If you have the system, and if you look past the bugs and glitches, Cyberpunk 2077 is an amazing game. It's a big, beautiful, and immersive experience that offers tons of replay value. And that was my review on Cyberpunk 2077. If you guys liked what you saw and want to see more gaming news, reviews, and release roundups, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so that you never miss another upload. And I'll see you when I see you.
Sometimes I think sitting on trains. Every step I get to, I'm clocking that game. Everyone's a winner, we're making our fame. Bonafide hustler, making my name. Sometimes I think sitting on trains. Every step I get to, I'm clocking that game. Everyone's a winner, we're making our fame. Bonafide hustler, making my name.
That's awesome.